No one's prepared. And that's the test. This isn't a week that explodes, it dissolves, quietly, into distortion. You'll hear people say things feel fine. That's exactly why it's dangerous. Because when everything on the outside looks stable, but your inner world starts to shake, that's not paranoia. That's perception. The moon is fading. Mercury drifts. Venus flickers in the background. None of them scream. And that's what makes this spiritual. The pressure won't come through thunder, it'll come through stillness. Through delays, glitches, emotional shadows that don't match the moment. And the ones who will pass this test aren't the ones who know the answers. They're the ones who can feel when something's off, even if no one else sees it. If you've been sensing that kind of subtle friction, the kind that doesn't explain itself but refuses to be ignored, you're not imagining it. You're picking up on what most people are still too distracted to notice. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's unfolding next. And if something this week has already stirred your intuition or shaken your emotions in ways you can't quite explain, share your experience in the comments. Your insight might be the confirmation someone else is waiting for. Because from here on, this isn't about what makes sense. It's about what speaks to the soul, quietly, precisely, and without warning. Let's begin. April 21st doesn't arrive with chaos. It arrives with a crack. Not loud enough to startle, but sharp enough to change something. You wake up and nothing looks different, yet everything feels slightly tilted. This isn't collapse. It's the first quiet fracture. The moon has hit its last quarter, and something in you is done holding it together. You snap, not explosively, but uncharacteristically. You speak too fast. You close off too soon. You lose patience with something that never used to bother you. Irritations rise from nowhere. And maybe it scares you. Maybe you wonder if you're unraveling. But this isn't a breakdown. This is a breach. An inner wall that's tired of standing. That calm version of you, the one who absorbs, who smiles, who explains, who justifies, she's stepping aside. Not out of failure. Out of wisdom. Because there's a deeper voice beneath her that needs the mic now. And the only way for that voice to rise is for the surface to crack. The quiet fracture begins here. And it doesn't ask for permission. Meanwhile, Mercury elongates, pulling farther from the sun, shifting your perception into stranger territory. This is where the voice in your head sounds calm and convincing, but it's not always right. You may feel unusually clear today. Certain about something that just yesterday was blurred. But look again. This is not truth rising. It's your subconscious dressing up in logic and trying to pass as authority. You may think you're having a breakthrough. And maybe you are. But just as likely, you're being fed a narrative that sounds elegant, because it hides something uncomfortable. The mind is clever like that. Especially under this sky. Be not wise in your own eyes, Proverbs 3 verse 7. Don't let clarity fool you into thinking it's divine just because it's sharp. Some of the most dangerous missteps are made with confidence. And this day isn't confusing, it's misleading. That's far more subtle. Far more seductive. The fracture in logic is not that things fall apart. It's that they suddenly make sense, but in a way that's hollow. Convenient. Sanitized. Be careful with the decisions you want to make today. The ones that feel urgent. Final. Righteous. Sometimes that rush isn't direction, it's pressure. Sometimes it's your system trying to quiet discomfort by choosing the fastest exit. But today isn't about the exit. It's about staying inside the fracture long enough to hear what it's really exposing. Let the irritation rise. Let the clarity feel questionable. Let the words come out sharper than expected. You don't need to control this. You need to stay conscious through it. Because the crack that's beginning to form inside you, it's not weakness. It's access. And what rises through that opening won't be clean at first. But it will be real. And real is where the shift begins. April 22nd feels thick. Not heavy like a weight you can name, but murky, submerged. Like you're underwater, but the storm isn't happening where you are. It's rumbling just above, and somehow you can feel the pressure without hearing the sound. The moon dims today. It retreats deeper into shadow. Emotions dull out, not because they've settled, but because they've dropped beneath the surface. Your mind feels slower. Your clarity becomes fog. It's the kind of day where you answer questions with a pause you can't explain. Where you sit still longer than usual and don't know why. This isn't laziness. This isn't confusion. It's coiling. Something is moving beneath the silence, a slow, spiraling buildup of unspoken discomfort. You don't feel it clearly yet, but your body does. The pressure gathers in odd places, a stiff jaw, a tightening chest, a restless fidget. You don't know what it is. You just know something's off. And your instinct might be to solve it. To journal it out, to call a friend, to take action just to feel like you're not drowning in stillness. But don't. Not today. This isn't a day for action. It's a day for watching. Track where the discomfort lands. Notice where your attention pulls without reason. Don't force a breakthrough. Let the silence lead. Because while your adult mind is trying to organize the discomfort, your inner child has already made a decision, and it isn't subtle. You don't want to be productive today. You don't want to schedule, to plan, to participate. You want to disappear. You want to cancel. You want to shut the door and not explain. And that's not regression. That's rebellion. The child within is quietly revolting. She's tired of being bent into roles that never fit. Tired of smiling through obligations. Tired of being reasonable when she's never been truly heard. The exhaustion you feel today might not be from lack of sleep. It might be from years of pretending you could keep this pace, this structure, this way of being, when something sacred inside you always knew it wasn't real. So if you're ghosting people today, canceling last minute, suddenly craving solitude with a force you can't ignore, honor that. This is your soul protesting false structure. The part of you that's done performing. The part that needs space not to reset, but to remember. Don't fight this impulse with shame. Let it move through you. Let yourself unhook from what no longer resonates. Let yourself rest without earning it. You are not broken for needing to vanish today. You are in the process of retrieving a version of yourself that was buried beneath busyness and burned out by expectation. Today, don't explain. Just observe. And if you feel like hiding, know this: hiding is sometimes how the soul prepares to re-emerge stronger, truer, and finally whole. April 23rd feels spacious, but don't confuse that with peace. It feels like the air cleared, the noise quieted, and something in you finally got to exhale. But beneath that breath, there's a question: is this clarity, or is this distance? Because the moon has moved into Aquarius, an emotional detachment becomes the default setting. You zoom out. You see the big picture. You see your patterns, your people, your choices from 10,000 feet above. It's helpful, at first. It gives you space from the intensity of the past few days. But after a while, something starts to feel off. Like you're watching your life from behind glass. Like your body is moving through time, but your soul is somewhere else, taking notes, not participating. Detachment feels like relief when you're tired. But it can also become avoidance. A clever form of escape that sounds like logic and feels like strength, but slowly builds walls around the heart. Today, you may notice that you're not feeling things the way you usually do. Conversations don't land. Music doesn't move you. Memories feel like they belong to someone else. You're present, but not in it. You're functioning, but disconnected. And that's the paradox of Aquarius: its wisdom is in its height, but its danger is in how far it pulls you from the center. The mind takes over. Feelings get filed away for later. But later never comes if you don't call it in. So pay attention, not just to what you think, but to what you're avoiding feeling. This isn't about forcing emotion. It's about recognizing that numbness isn't always healing. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's what we reach for when we're not ready to sit with what's real. You're not doing it wrong. You're adjusting. But today is the perfect day to gently ask, what am I avoiding inside this calm? Because even in detachment, there are messages. And today, they don't arrive as insight. They arrive as symbols. The download doesn't come in words. It comes in fragments. In moments. In sensations that bypass logic and speak directly to your spirit. A phrase you've heard 3 times in the past 24 hours. A set of repeating numbers. A name you haven't thought of in years that suddenly enters your awareness with weight. Or a dream that left you breathless, even though you barely remember the plot. This is not your mind generating stories. This is your field receiving instruction. And not everyone will hear it, not because it's not available, but because it's subtle. It doesn't shout. It's layered in energy. Hidden in repetition. Buried in the rhythm of your day. You have to be quiet enough to catch it. Still enough to let it land. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Revelation 2 verse 7. The truth doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it slips through when your guard is down and your expectations are low. Sometimes it moves like a soft whisper across the edge of your nervous system and asks only one thing, did you notice? Today is not a day for answers. It's a day for attention. You may not understand what's coming through, but you will feel its presence. The urge to write. The need to turn off the noise. The sudden craving for silence or solitude. That's not avoidance. That's alignment. Something is trying to speak through your intuition, your body, your emotional field. And it needs you alert, not loud. So let today be strange. Let it feel distant. Let yourself zoom out, but don't disappear. Stay tethered to something real, even if it's just your breath. Stay available for a message that doesn't fit into sentences. And if something small pierces your awareness, don't dismiss it. That might be the most important thing you receive all week. You're not disconnected. You're being cleared. Not emptied, but refined. And what fills that quiet space will be nothing short of divine. April 24th glows. Not with softness, but with stark clarity. Venus reaches her brightest point in the sky today, and yet, what she illuminates may feel far from romantic. Because beauty, under this kind of light, doesn't hide your wounds. It exposes them. You look up, and she's dazzling. The most radiant object in the sky after the moon. She glows in a way that captures your gaze, and for a moment, it feels like a blessing. But stay in that gaze long enough, and you'll notice something else. The reflection isn't comforting. It's confronting. Because Venus at her brightest doesn't just reflect love. She reflects illusion. And everything you've used to soften the truth, every half-story you've told yourself to keep going, every justification that kept the peace at the cost of your soul, is suddenly under a spotlight. You may feel called out today. Not by others, but by your own awareness. That job you've convinced yourself is fine. That relationship you've edited to seem workable. That habit you've framed as self-care when it's really avoidance. They all start glowing, not beautifully, but truthfully. It's not that you're being watched. It's that you're being revealed. And revelation doesn't always arrive like divine light from above. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a space you used to enjoy and realizing it no longer feels like home. Sometimes it sounds like your voice mid-conversation, suddenly foreign to your ears. Sometimes it's a mirror that used to comfort you, now refusing to lie. The mask of, "it's fine," slips today. Maybe not publicly. But internally, something breaks. Something that needed to. Because there is no real intimacy with self without exposure. No embodiment without the stripping away of romanticized illusions. And Venus, for all her elegance, has never been about comfort. She's about reflection. About value. About seeing clearly what you've been willing to compromise for a sense of stability that's no longer stable. So don't be surprised if you feel emotionally raw today. Not dramatic. Just bare. As if your spirit is standing in front of the very altar it once built, now ready to tear it down because it was built on the wrong devotion. You might feel like a spotlight is on you, even when no one's looking. That's not paranoia. That's your soul coming out of hiding. And what's being revealed today isn't punishment. It's preparation. Because if you want real beauty, real peace, real alignment, it can't be built on shadows. Everything exposed by the light becomes visible, Ephesians 5 verse 13. That's the gift. Even if it stings. Even if it disorients you. Because only what's visible can be healed. Only what's acknowledged can be transformed. Let the discomfort land. Let the truths you've avoided flash across your inner screen without resistance. Don't rush to fix or reframe them. Just notice. Just hold. Just let the light do what it's here to do, not to judge, but to clarify. Because what you see today may change how you move through tomorrow. And though it won't be easy, it will be real. And real is where your future starts. April 25th arrives like water with no edge. The kind that seeps into places you didn't know were still cracked. The moon moves through Pisces today, and with it comes a dissolving of all the lines you thought were holding you together. Emotional boundaries blur. Your body becomes a container for energy that isn't yours, and your heart feels like it's absorbing echoes from rooms you've never entered. You feel everything. And it's not all yours. Someone else's sadness. The heaviness of a conversation you overheard. A sudden tightness in your chest that doesn't belong to your life right now. This isn't you being irrational. This isn't you falling apart. This is you picking up transmissions. Subtle ones. Old ones. Collective ones. The emotional tide has overflowed, and your sensitivity isn't a malfunction, it's a gift that's just a little too open today. You're not overreacting. You're overfeeling. And that's hard to explain when the tears come out of nowhere. When your body tenses without cause. When a stranger's eyes feel like they're telling you a story you're already grieving. There's no script for this. No handbook for how to hold what doesn't belong to you but somehow passes through you anyway. Today, your nervous system is a field, not a wall. And in that openness, old ghosts start to stir. The body remembers what the mind has buried. And the Pisces moon isn't just intuitive, it's ancestral. Dreams carry fragments. Emotions carry signals. You might find yourself grieving something you thought was healed. Crying over nothing, or something very old. A memory that visits not as a thought, but as a wave of sensation that hits you mid-sentence, mid-step, mid-silence. This isn't regression. It's revelation. What rises today may feel unprocessed, raw, uninvited. But it's surfacing not to punish you, to purify you. To move through your bloodstream one last time before leaving for good. This is a purification disguised as oversensitivity. It doesn't look spiritual. It doesn't look sacred. It looks like emotional overwhelm. Like needing more sleep than usual. Like canceling a call because the sound of a voice feels like too much. Like standing in your kitchen and forgetting why you're there. But behind the fog, something sacred is happening. The body is draining what the soul no longer wants to carry. Let it. Let yourself step back from expectations. Let yourself slow down. Let the tears come, even if they feel unreasonable. Let your skin crawl without demanding a reason. The soul doesn't always translate what it's clearing, it just clears. And today is not about processing it all. It's about creating space. Because when the tide pulls back, it will leave behind something simpler. Quieter. More true. But that can only happen if you let the tide rise in the first place. You don't need to defend your sensitivity today. You need to honor it. It's not your job to figure out where all of it came from. It's your job to keep the channel open long enough for it to leave. And when it does, you'll feel it, not as relief, but as peace. Not as logic, but as lightness. April 26th doesn't come with noise. It arrives through sensation. Not the kind you name, the kind that builds before you're aware of it. You wake up with your chest tight, breath uneven, a strange weight pressing down on your skin. The world outside is still, but something inside is buzzing. Not panic. Not fear. Just too much. You're being stretched in directions your logic can't follow. The moon brushes Neptune today, deep inside Purva Bhadrapada, a zone where illusions collapse and the sacred begins to move through symbol, not language. And it feels like being touched by something you can't see but can't ignore either. Your intuition sharpens, but it won't stabilize. One moment you feel like you understand everything. The next you're unsure you know anything at all. You try to trace what's happening, but the lines won't hold. You reach for familiar insights, but they feel hollow. What you're experiencing isn't confusion, it's recalibration. You're being taught how to hear differently. How to receive without needing to define. This isn't the old intuition that came in flashes. This is a deeper current, one that requires surrender, not interpretation. Throughout the day, messages arrive, but not through logic. A dream you only half remember lingers like smoke in the back of your throat. A phrase someone speaks makes your whole body respond, even though the words were ordinary. You keep seeing the same numbers, the same image, the same emotion, but can't explain why they follow you. Something is trying to speak, but not in your language. And the more you chase it, the more it floats. You're not meant to hold it. You're meant to allow it to pass through you, to witness without claiming. Your nervous system may feel overextended. Light too sharp. Sounds too loud. People too close. That's not weakness. That's the veil thinning across your skin. You're picking up more than usual, not because you're fragile, but because you're open. And today, openness is the assignment. You're not here to sort it all. You're here to feel what moves through, even if you don't know where it's going. Then, without announcement, April 27th enters. And the storm that's been building beneath the surface doesn't crash. It releases. Silently. Not in drama, but in stillness. You won't get a final message. You won't know what it meant. You'll just feel something lift. Not all at once, but enough to notice the way your body begins to soften. Your jaw unclenches. Your chest expands. You breathe without thinking, and it feels like the first real breath you've had all week. The moon is still in Pisces, but near its edge now. And so are you. This isn't the kind of ending you remember. It's the kind you realize later, when you look back and wonder why everything started flowing easier after this point. You won't be able to explain what left you. You'll just know something did. No conclusions arrive today. No breakthroughs. No ceremony. But something ends. A belief. A burden. A version of yourself that needed too much effort to maintain. It doesn't leave with fanfare. It slips out the side door while your attention is elsewhere. And somehow, the space it leaves behind feels cleaner than anything you could have planned. You may feel neutral today. Blank. You may want to sleep longer than usual. Say little. Cancel plans. That's not resistance. That's reverence. You're processing a departure that didn't ask for your permission. And even though you don't fully understand what just shifted, your soul does. Your body does. The silence carries intelligence if you let it speak without needing volume. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. That restoration might not look dramatic. It might look like peace that doesn't need explanation. A lightness in your spirit. An absence of something you didn't realize was pressing against you. This is not the kind of transformation you announce. It's the kind you feel 3 days later when you finally look in the mirror and recognize something softer behind your eyes. Today doesn't demand action. It invites presence. Let this stillness be enough. Let it mark the close of a cycle you didn't even know you were completing. You don't need to name it. You don't need to understand it. You just need to feel how deeply you're being returned to yourself. This isn't clarity. It's compression. The kind that doesn't unlock anything with ease but instead presses on everything until the false pieces begin to split apart. This week wasn't designed to teach in the way you're used to being taught. It wasn't here to give you clean messages, prophetic insight, or even satisfying meaning. It was here to seal something inside you, something old, something sacred, something final. You weren't meant to understand it all. You were meant to walk through it blind. Not because the path was broken, but because trust had to be born somewhere beyond your mind. And trust doesn't emerge in clarity. It emerges in weight. In pressure. In uncertainty. In stillness that feels too empty to be wise and yet somehow carries the voice of God hidden beneath its breath. The moon didn't guide you this time. It pulled away. Left you walking through water with no reflection to read. Mercury didn't explain. It stepped aside, let your thoughts twist themselves into shapes that no longer served. And Venus, the planet of beauty, of desire, of harmony, didn't comfort you. She confronted you. Held a mirror so close that you couldn't look at anything but your own distortion. And in that space, something began to burn away. This wasn't alignment. It was exposure. This wasn't healing. It was revelation. You weren't being asked to rebuild, you were being asked to remember who you were before the architecture was laid. Before you needed words. Before you needed reasons. Before you needed proof. That's how real awakening begins. Not with insight. But with silence. With the absence of instruction. With the stripping of every narrative but the one your soul already knew and was waiting for you to stop talking long enough to hear. So if you leave this week confused, uncertain, undone, that's not failure. That's passage. You made it through the fire no one else saw. You stood inside the quiet no one else could sit in. You let yourself be remade without clarity, without control, without applause. And now, something inside you has changed. It's subtle. It's sealed. And it's yours. Let the mind ache for answers if it must. The soul knows this was never a puzzle. It was a preparation. And now that it's complete, the only thing left to do is carry what remains.